I'm really happy that there are people that are making this happen. And it's just a special thing for me that there's people that care about keeping people connected. And it's also something that I'm trying myself to do. And one of the ways that I'm doing that is that I have something on the internet called simchasystems.com. And over there's a Parsha blog, and you can go on there and leave your messages or, do whatever it is that you want to express. So what we're doing here is trying to connect to Hashem, because that is what everything in life is about, trying to connect to Hashem. And that means that what we're coming up to over here, Tisha B'Av, is also going to be a day in the calendar of trying to connect to Hashem. So being that the case, we're going to be asking ourselves this simple question: how does Hashem want me to connect to Him on Tisha B'Av? Pretty straightforward question. It's a question that everybody should be asking themselves. Now, the real answer to that question is by the book by Reb Shimshon Pincus on Tisha B'Av. They recently translated it into English, and it's an amazing book. I do not get paid for giving that plug. It's just a from the heart, legitimate plea and good advice to anybody that wants to get involved with knowing what Tisha B'Av is all about. Read that book. Besides for reading that book, you can listen to what we're going to say here, and maybe we'll be able to give ourselves an idea of what Tisha B'Av is all about. So, on our journey to get closer to Hashem through Tisha B'Av, we know that Chazal tell us that what we're supposed to be doing on Tisha B'Av is being misavel on the Churban Beis Hamikdash, being misavel on Yerushalayim, mourning the destruction of Yerushalayim. And the way that we do that, everybody knows, we don't wear leather shoes, we sit on the floor, take the brachos down from the Aron Kodesh, we do all different kinds of things, and all of it is obviously to connect to Hashem, and specifically to be mourning the destruction of Yerushalayim. And the obvious problem is that very often it turns out that after Tisha B'Av, we look back and we're not really sure if we actually did anything or changed ourselves or actually did mourn Yerushalayim. We obviously sat on the floor, we realized that. We obviously didn't eat because we realized that. But to actually have an interchange or to actually feel like Tisha B'Av did something, to me is, to us, is something that I'm not sure that everybody's always feeling. So therefore, just by way of introduction, I remember I was in Rabbi Chesky Dickman's Tana Shir, so I know that a lot of people listening to this are probably there also, and we learned over there a Gemara that says that God does not look at the ripped clothing, at the fasting, at all these actions that we're doing, but rather He wants to know what's on the inside, what's on the heart. How did we change ourselves? So on that Gemara, the Maharsha asks a very, very simple question. He wants to know if it's true that God is worried about how we're changing ourselves, so then why is it that we have to do all these things? Why is it that we have to fast? Why is it that we have to do all these outside actions? And the answer he gives, which I think that most people on their own can think of, is that because the outside actions is what's actually going to help me have an inner change. And in the words of the Mesilas Yesharim, he says that that the outer actions awaken inner feelings. And just to talk about that for 1 second, the idea that doing outer actions, it doesn't say that they create inner feelings. It says that it awakens inner feelings. And from there, I think that it's safe to say that we actually all have a very strong connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and especially through this day of Tisha B'Av, that exists inside of us, and that these outer actions are really there in order to help bring it out. It's similar to maybe putting salt on a food, bringing out the taste within. These actions that we do on the outside can actually awaken things on the inside that exist there. Now, it's very important to realize that these things do exist inside of us, because it's very difficult to imagine connecting to Tisha B'Av by having to go out and get something that does not exist and bring it into me, and to just say, no, you have it inside of you. I have it inside of me. There's an inside part of me that is very, very in tune with Tisha B'Av, and it's just sleeping. And what I want to do is I want to wake it up. And the way I'm going to wake it up is by doing these actions. However, if that's the case, then why is it that it doesn't work? And the answer is very simple, because in order to wake something up, I have to know what it is that I'm waking up. So it's not enough for us to get involved in the actions. Besides from being involved in the actions, my mind also has to know why I'm being involved in these actions. And those two things together, the partnership of knowing why I'm doing these actions, and at the same time doing these actions, that can create a tremendous awakening inside of us. Now, along these lines, the talking about changing the inside of us and realizing what we have in the Sefer Dasas Atzmacha, getting to know yourself, he says a very simple mashal. He says that when somebody gets married, he doesn't need to train himself to now act like a husband. He knows that he can't come home at 2 a.m. without calling his wife, and he acts that way. Hopefully, if not, then he's got a separate issue. But the natural way of the world is, as soon as you acknowledge who you are and what you are, you act in accordance with that. So when a person realizes what he has inside of him, as far as connecting to Tisha B'Av, then it becomes much easier to do that. And the person shouldn't feel like, it's out there in outer space and it's very hard to connect to it, because it's just a matter of identifying with it, realizing that that's who we are inside, and realizing that it's just a matter of acknowledging that and connecting to it. So now, with this introduction, we're going to now talk about what we have existing inside of us, and we're going to try to, along with the mashal, try to bring it out in a real way to have this Tisha B'Av change us in a way that will bring us closer to Hashem. So the idea is like this: inside of us, there's a different koiches, different powers, and one of those powers is called Kavod Shemayim, Hakaras Kavod Shemayim, recognizing the glory of heaven, recognizing the glory of God. And there's another koich inside of us called Chasar Kavod Shemayim, not recognizing the glory of God. Two koiches that we have inside of us. So now, with that idea in our heads, let's try to say a mashal that's going to try to bring out this idea a little bit better, and then we're going to tie it all together, and hopefully these ideas will give us an opportunity to utilize this day, Tisha B'Av. So, it goes like this. A person's in a mall, and he sees a mother, and she has a special needs, child with her, and it's very, very nice. They're in a pizza store. She comes over to him with the Coca-Cola. Here's your Coca-Cola. And she comes over to him with a slice of pizza and cuts it up for him. And you're watching this, and you see the love that the mother has for her child, and you see how hard it is for her and how much she puts into it. And it's very, very, nice setting that you're watching. Now, all of a sudden, we're discussing a scenario where there's a special needs child involved, and he's not so in control of himself all the time. And all of a sudden, you're sitting there and you start seeing him screaming at his mother, and you see him cursing, and you see him saying, "I hate you, and it's horrible, and how could you, do this, and the soda's warm, and the pizza's cold." And anybody that's paying attention, not, on their phone, whatever, playing some video game or something, actually looking at what's going on in front of them, there's a feeling inside of them that hurts. It's a hurt feeling the pain of this mother, feeling what this must be like to go through, to have her pouring herself out, giving all of this to her child, and for him to go and totally not acknowledge it and throw it in her face and act that way. It's something that anybody with a little bit of sense would feel bad about it. It would affect them on a deep inner level. And what we're trying to do here is take that mashal and try to bring it down to us and ask ourselves how we relate to this mashal in our relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And I think that the idea is very simple. On a very, very individual level, we all know that we get blessings from Kadosh Baruch Hu all the time. We all know that constantly, as we speak, as we sit, as we're right now using the technology that Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us to have our eyes, to be able to see, to look, to have our ears to be able to hear, to be able to have a mind that can acknowledge and interpret all the things that we're hearing. We're talking about amazing blessings that we're getting from Kadosh Baruch Hu all the time. But at the same time, how often are we acting like this child and not recognizing what Hashem is doing for us? we're not recognizing all of the blessings and all the brachas and all of the good things. And we're not expressing all this gratitude that we should have. Instead, we're acting like this special needs boy that he doesn't have a choice in the matter, he doesn't have a bechir in the matter, and he acts in a way that makes our stomach turn. That's a natural feeling that a person will get, I think, when they see something like this happening. And I think that idea is exactly the nakuda that we need to be focusing on Tisha B'Av. The lack of kavod shamayim, the lack of a Beis Hamikdash should translate in our minds that there is not a recognition that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us everything. We can ask ourselves a question: how could it be that 3 Jewish boys could be kidnapped and to have whatever was done to them? It's hard to even speak out loud. How could that be? If Hashem runs the world and Hashem is the controller of the world, so then how can things like this happen? How could a person go into somebody's house and Rahman al-Islam, like, I can't even speak these things out because it's too hard on the emotions right now. But the idea is, it's because there's not a non-recognition of who is king in the world. There are different levels. There's my own level that I don't recognize that Hashem is king over the world, and it spreads to the people around me, and it spreads to the nations around me. And the reason why these things are able to happen, the reason why there's able to be a Chorban Beis Hamikdash, the reason why there's able to be a Holocaust, is because of a lack of recognition of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a lack of recognition of the Malchus Shemayim. And that's what it means to be misabel on the Yerushalayim, misabel on the Chorban Beis Hamikdash. That I'm mourning the fact that I'm seeing in myself and I'm seeing in the people around us that we ourselves act in a way like this mentally challenged boy who doesn't have a choice in the matter. And we do this, and we see it in others. We see people walking around without payas. We see people walking around not keeping Shabbos. We have our own monsters in our closets that we don't want to tell anybody about, in our own ways that we don't recognize Hashem. It's everywhere. So Tisha B'Av comes, and it's a day that we want to sit on the floor, and we take one day out of the year to recognize this in a real way. To recognize it in a way that this can change me, because I'm open to the idea that things are not working right in the world. Things are not going the way that they're supposed to. There's a king. There's a Kadosh Baruch Hu in the world. Why is there so much suffering? And I want to try to bring this out, that the idea isn't to cry. The idea isn't to, chas v'shalom, go to Blockbuster and rent a Holocaust movie. And then great, I feel so bad. I went through Tisha B'Av, I read a Holocaust book, and I feel bad that there was a Holocaust. We're missing the boat if that's how we're relating to it. The reason why we're saying the kinnis is not so that we could, just have some water on our face. There's a famous story with the Rebbe that a guy comes to him and he says, how could you give so much cover to that guy? You call him a Jew, he doesn't even have a beard. So he says, let me tell you something. That guy's going to come to heaven, they're going to say, Jew, where's your beard? But when you come to heaven, they're going to say, beard, where's your Jew? Right? So, and I'm trying to say that that's similar to how we have to relate to Tisha B'Av, that the goal isn't to cry. That's obviously a consequence of what we're doing. If a person's able to do it in such a way that they're going to recognize the lack of honor of God in the world and the lack of Kedusha in the world, in ourselves, in the nations around us. And we have to realize that it starts with us, it starts with the individual, goes to the community, and it gets bigger and bigger until it's all around the world. We ask ourselves, how does ISIS have so much power? Isn't Kadosh Baruch Hu king of the world? The answer is yes, but there's a lack of recognition of Malchus Shemayim. That's the idea that I'm trying to bring out, that we and ourselves, we want to go into Tisha B'Av realizing, why am I sitting on the floor? Why am I not wearing leather? Why am I not eating? The answer is simple, because I'm trying to recognize that there is suffering in the world. And the reason why there's suffering in the world is because of a lack of recognition of a Kadosh Baruch Hu's kingship. And that's why we're reading the Kinnis. And when we see it in the Kinnis, obviously this can be one of the reasons. There might be many. Obviously there's going to be different ways to approach Tisha B'Av, and this is only one of them. But what I'm trying to say is that when we sit on the floor and we do this, we want to have a conscious thought in our minds that I might not be on the level to be feeling bad that somebody drinks non-kosher, drinks. or eats non-kosher food. I might not be on that level. But I'm willing to sit on the floor and I'm willing to do the actions to try to internalize a little bit that I myself don't live up to the recognition of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and the people around me don't either. And that is what is going to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash, because I'm taking out of my life a day to recognize this, which means that I'm going to be working on it. That's also the reason why I think that it's called a Moed, because it's a day that we're able to get together, have a meeting with Hashem. So basically, to tie all this up and to finish up here, what I want to try to bring out is that the real way to work on how to get close to Hashem through Tisha B'Av is actually by starting with recognizing how amazing Hashem is. That I walk around realizing how amazing Hashem is, so therefore when I don't live up to that recognition, and when I see others around me don't live up to that recognition, I feel something inside, and I want to change, and I want to do something about it. So it's recognizing how amazing Hashem is, recognizing what should be, and then only after that coming to Tisha B'Av and saying to myself, wow, it's not the way it should be. Life is not normal. Something's missing in the world, Some people say like, oh, I can't believe I didn't have, I can't believe that the pizza store's closed. It's the end of the world. There's a lot more missing than the pizza store being closed. I'm guilty of this also. I have tons of things in my life that I do that. So Tisha B'Av is the day that I tell myself, wait a second. Look at the world around you. There's a chisaron in Kavod Shemayim. And through doing that, that's how we're going to be building the Beis HaMikdash. Now, just on a side note, I think that this might be a very nice pshat. If you notice, Rosh Hashanah is the first, Rosh Hashanah, right? The beginning of the year, so to speak. And the furthest moed from Rosh Hashanah is Tisha B'Av. Why? Because Rosh Hashanah is all about being Mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem, you're the king. Hashem, you're the king of the world. You're the king of the arts. You're the king of everything. So my whole year is lived talking about how Hashem is the king. Now I can get to Tisha B'Av and I can recognize, hey, wait a second, something's wrong here. So when a person builds up the Tisha B'Av, recognizing how amazing Hashem is, then when he gets to Tisha B'Av, he's able to mourn and realize we're missing a Beis HaMikdash. We're missing what they call Giloy Yeshchina. We're missing a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And it says in the Rambam that the difference between now and Yemais Mashiach is that we're not going to be ruled by other governments. We're going to be ruled by ourselves. We're going to be ruled by Jewish law, which is going to be amazing. Because there's not going to be any such thing as people being kidnapped. Not going to be any such thing as people blowing themselves up. Because we're going to be in charge. Because there's going to be a recognition that a Kadosh Baruch was in charge. Kadosh Baruch was the one running the world. And just on a last note, first of all, don't forget to buy that book from Rosh Pincus. Amazing book. It will guaranteed to change your Tisha B'Av. If it doesn't, then you can email me and I'll send you a check for how much the book costs. And you can send me the book and I'll give it to somebody else. But I'm sure that it will change the way you relate to Tisha B'Av. I'm just going to read quickly a sentence in the Mesilas Yesharim. Mesilas Yesharim says in the end of Perek Yates, if a man will say, who am I, that I'm going to daven and beseech HaKadosh Baruch Hu about ending the gullus and about gathering in all of the people and being Matzmiach Yeshua, sprouting of the salvation. Who am I to do that? I'm sure everybody's thinking that. What a great shir by Simcha Rabbah, but it doesn't really apply to me because I can't really change anything. It says in Mesilas Yesharim, you missed the boat. Because there's a Mishnah in Sanhedrin that says, B'shvili nevro elam. That means that each and every one of us has to make this identification change. Change the way that we look at ourselves and recognize that we have a koyach inside called the recognition that of Chasar Kavod Shemayim. That the world is not running in the way that it's supposed to be. And I personally, B'shvili nevro elam, can change all of that. I can make the world run in the way that it's supposed to be. So I want to give myself a bracha and give a bracha to all the hundreds and thousands of people that are watching this now. And the way that I'm going to give this bracha is by saying, please HaKadosh Baruch Hu, make us connect to you in all of our ways and realize that we can bring about the revelation of Mashiach and your rulership and kingship over the whole world. Thanks a lot for listening. Looking forward to your comments, questions, and criticisms at simchasystems.com. Simchasystems@gmail, sorry. And thank you very much to Kesher for giving me this opportunity. And have a great day.